Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, I want to apologize for Eric Fernandez, the program manager, could not join today. So I'm going to provide you with an overview about the Data for Safety program and an update about where we stand. So I start with very brief reminders, because this is important to understand what is this program, about the European safety risk management cycle. So some key principles: this is a collaborative work with experts from both the industry and states. One of the main objectives is to identify safety priorities and as well to prepare the production of safety intelligence that is connected with mitigating actions. In terms of process, it can be modeled in such a cycle with 5 steps. The first one is about identification of the safety issues. The second one about the assessment of those identified safety issues. The third step is more about the mitigation, so definition and programming of safety actions. Fourth step, implementation and monitoring of those actions. And the fifth step is about measurement of the performance. So I think this is nothing new for you, but I want to explain how it blends with, or how data for safety blends with this process. In terms of key deliverables at systemic level, for safety performance, we have the publication every year of the annual safety review. And in terms of programming, we have the European Plan of Aviation Safety, which is a multi-annual programming planning. This process is fundamentally based on data collection and analysis, and this is where Data for Safety will play a role. Indeed, the program, which is a data collection and analysis program, will be an enabler of the 2 first steps: identification and assessment of safety issues, but as well measurement of the performance. I will not explain in details this chart, but the key message here is that before launching such a program, we launched a feasibility study, and as an initial step, we made a consultation of our stakeholders to know if they will be supportive of a European data exchange program that aims at identifying and analyzing aviation safety risks in Europe. The outcomes of this consultation were surprisingly very, very positive, because we had almost no stakeholders against such an approach, such a program. But as well, it helped us identify the key attributes, key principles that will have to be implemented to have a successful data sharing and analysis program. And those key principles are presented on this slide. The first one, it has to be a voluntary and collaborative partnership among all stakeholders. And this has to be reflected in an independent governance, reflecting the partnership and collaborative approach between authorities and industry, with a dual management authority-industry. One key element highlighted by this consultation phase is the need for an independent third-party entity in charge of processing and protecting the data. So a data processing and protecting organization, providing the big data solution, but as well implementing the data governance, data protection principles. Outcomes shared for the benefit of the whole community. So risk identification and analysis has to be performed within this program, but connected with the wider aviation community. So sharing data, but not only, as well sharing the outcomes, safety intelligence produced by this program. And the last principle is that such a program should not be developed in isolation. It has to be linked with other international initiatives, twin programs in other regions in the world, in the US, in Asia Pacific, in all the regional areas in the world. So in terms of stakeholders, I think you have on this slide all the main categories of stakeholders in our aviation ecosystem, and the objective is to have those stakeholders all represented in the Data for Safety program. So EASA is one of them, the European Commission as well, but air traffic control, aircraft manufacturers, NAAs, airlines, pilot communities, maintenance, airports, so all the main categories. And this is not an exhaustive list. All of them linked by a charter, setting the key principles and objectives of such a data sharing and analysis program. One of the outcomes of the feasibility study was as well that a first phase to demonstrate the concept was needed, a proof of concept phase. in order to test, demonstrate, and prepare the full deployment at scale of such a program. So in order to limit the complexity, because this is quite a challenging program, the proof of concept phase will be done with a limited number of stakeholders and will enable to confirm the expected benefits while testing the technical and governance models to run such a program. And so this is what we launched end of 2016, beginning of 2017. Our main objectives of this POC phase are twofold. First of all, build the trust. So demonstrate that we can build a program providing the right framework protection for the data so that the stakeholders are comfortable sharing their data and engaging in the analysis work. And as well, demonstrate the added value. So show that compared to what is already existing in our aviation system and in our SRM, safety risk management cycle, this program will bring additional added value in terms of safety intelligence capabilities and measurement of the performance capabilities. So now, as I said, we kicked off the proof of concept phase end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And these are the what we call the founding members. So the entities who engaged in this first phase and are currently contributing in setting up the data for safety program. So as you can see, it's a quite limited number of stakeholders. This is made on purpose because we have a lot of dimensions to explore, processes, protocols to test, define and test. So on purpose, we limited to stakeholders with a real capacity to engage and who are very supportive of the program. So 2 aircraft manufacturers, Airbus, Boeing, 5 airlines, Ryanair, British Airways, Lufthansa, Iberia, and EasyJet, 4 national aviation authorities, the French one, Spanish one, Irish one, UK one, and very important, the ECA, the European Cockpit Association, representing the pilot communities. So now the concept. The main idea of the Data for Safety program is to leverage on 3 components that are existing currently in our aviation system, but are still fragmented, scattered, and not connected. So the first one is the big data technologies. We want to leverage on the availability, maturity of those technologies and apply them to aviation safety topics. In parallel, we have, on a daily basis, a lot of operational data produced in our system and still considered, analyzed in a siloed manner, scattered. So the idea of the program is to collect and connect those main aviation data sources. So the main ones considered for the POC phase are the flight data acquired by the onboard aircraft systems, the air traffic data or the traffic data, so either from the radar, ground radar, or the ADSB data, safety reports with the European Central Repository, and weather data. And the last component is more related to expertise, to people, it's expert knowledge. And this expert knowledge is as well distributed, scattered in our respective organizations. And one of the key objectives of the program is to organize the collaborative work of the experts using these big data technologies and leveraging on these fused data sets. So how do we organize the Data for Safety program? Operationally, this is mainly 2 platforms. The first one on the bottom part is the big data platform. So this is about IT. This is the third-party organization in charge of collecting the data from the data owners, processing this data, making it ready for analysis, and providing the power of big data technologies to the other platform, to the analysts. On the top side of the slide, the collaborative analysis platform is really about people, experts, organizing the collaborative work of those experts and giving them access to this big data platform with both the technologies and the data, so that we can produce, extract safety intelligence ready to support the definition and implementation of mitigating actions. So basically, enable a better capability to know where to look, see it coming, trying to anticipate on the risks, the emerging threats, and finally, support actions. So as I already explained, in terms of systemic deliverables, this program will support the production of our multi-annual planning of safety actions with the EPAS, and our annual measurement of performance with the annual safety review. Now, a focus on the key families of outputs we expect in terms of safety intelligence for this program. So the first category, we call it metrics. It's safety performance indicators. It's a set of algorithms and analytics that are there to measure the evolution, the trends of non-safety issues. In parallel of those at systemic level, so on all the data aggregated. In parallel of those metrics, we have the blind benchmarking. So the idea is now to provide to each stakeholder part of the program the capability to compare his performance with the performance of peer organizations. So this will be performed in a de-identified manner. So one operator will not be able to compare his performance to a given operator knowing who is this operator, but will be in a position to compare his performance compared to comparable operators. The third category, directed study, is really the deep dive analysis with an objective to understand as much as possible a given safety issue, model it, understand how it develops in our system, how are we exposed to this safety issue. So this is the very detailed supervised analysis. And the last category, which is the ultimate objective of such a program, is called vulnerability discoveries. This is where the system, the program, will help us detect the emerging threats, the risks we haven't well identified that are developing in our European aviation system. This is the ultimate objective, but this is as well the most challenging. So we have a step approach, and we start from the foundations, the metrics, and we move towards more advanced analytics with vulnerability discoveries. Now, practically speaking, in terms of implementation, so I started to explain, we had a setup phase with a consultation phase, feasibility study, securing the funding, and identifying the need to launch a proof of concept phase that we launched end of 2016, beginning of 2017. We are in the middle of this proof of concept phase. And we target a progressive switch into an operational phase, so scaling in terms of stakeholders, scaling in terms of data sources, after having demonstrated that this program works, that we have technical and organizational processes defined and running, and we are in a position to bring additional added value to our existing safety and intelligence capabilities. So this operational phase, this deployment into the run phase is expected by 2020-2021. Thank you very much for your attention. On purpose, I kept it short and gave you an overview, and we have a few minutes to take questions if you have any.
We can put the slide on.
Okay, so I'll take it in order. I start with the first one. All right, so in the proof of concept phase, I do see only airlines participating as operators, but no helicopter operators. Why? So as I said, we are aware of this. We had to make some choices to limit the complexity. So during the proof of concept phase, it's true that we decided to focus on CAT fixed-wing operations. But everything that we develop in terms of protocols, way of working, even data processing, will be applicable to helicopter operations, given some adaptations. So the onboarding of helicopter operators, manufacturers, so the ecosystem specific to helicopter is planned, but will come more when we will switch from the POC into the run phase progressively. So 2020, 2021. Okay, so I think I just answered to the first one now. Second one as well. So I think, yes, obviously, so far, the program is focused on fixed-wing operations. But in parallel, we are preparing the run phase and onboarding of helicopter, but as well, general aviation is part of the topics we are working on to prepare this extension of the program in terms of stakeholders. Okay, so the first one is interesting. Voluntary contribution seems weak. What about creating a mechanism accepted by all parties? So on the first part, I have to say that I'm not sure it's weak to apply the voluntary principle. As I explained, during the consultation phase, it was very obvious from a majority of organizations that this program will not work, simply will not work if it was mandated. So contributing to the program in terms of data is not the only contribution we expect and we can observe. Making the partnership voluntary is as well very important because the stakeholders engaged in the analysis activities are open to share more data or metadata. So the voluntary principle, I would say, is a key enabler of a successful data sharing analysis program in our case. So I don't know who asked this question. Perhaps yes, could you explain why you identify this as a weak component?
Because we try to engage with the NEAs in order to understand if they were retrieving some kind of data, like ours, this kind of information. And we realized that many of them didn't have any data. Some of them did have some data, but were not sharing it. So we just keep it to themselves. So that's why I said weak. I used the word weak. I didn't mean mandated. Create a mechanism for everybody to sign and say, okay, this is the way to go. Not, okay, I'm going to give the data to you, maybe part of it, maybe
Okay.
not today, maybe next year. I mean, this is what I meant.
Okay, okay, understand. So how we address this in the Data for Safety program is that you are not operators, for example, or NAs are not just data providers. They are part of the program at operational level in the analysis, but they are as well part of the program at governance level, at executive level. So I would say it's not just throwing your data in this program and waiting to see what will be the outputs. It's really engaging in the program at all levels to steer it. So all parties are interested in the successful implementation of the program. So I think the governance in that case, the charter, but as well the governance is the answer to avoid this type of phenomena. So David, I can see I can take one more.
Yeah, I think there are just a couple maybe that could be interesting if we can scroll. There is one which is did you benchmark with EASA programs, okay, which seems to be very similar.
Okay, so the ASAIAS program is really a twin program. It's very similar in terms of objectives, technicalities. The only difference is perhaps the fragmentation of our aviation system in Europe compared to their system. Actually, since the feasibility study, we are working with them to help us leverage on their lessons learned, best practices, and adapt to our European aviation system. We have a very strong cooperation since the beginning. It's ongoing. It's formalized through letters of information sharing. So the cooperation is very strong at all levels: governance, technical level, protocols, processes to perform the analysis. We have regular exchanges. So yes, we are fully coordinated with the ASAIAS program. One very important aspect to be underlined is that ASAIAS Data for Safety are regional programs. We do not anticipate exchange of operational data, but only of intelligence in terms of techniques, in terms of way of organizing the program, and in terms of safety intelligence. So we make sure the outputs will be somehow technically aligned so that we can compare what we will produce based on our data in Europe, what they produce in the US, and we can learn from each other or build a bigger picture at global level. So it's fully coordinated, no exchange of data, but exchange of intelligence and safety intelligence.
I think maybe one last, which was, can you give an idea of metrics and kind of accuracy linked to that? Okay.
So metrics are there to monitor what the deficiencies we already have identified, we already know. So I will just go through the few algorithms we will implement as a first package of metrics. And we are actually starting the implementation right now. They are still quite focused on FVM data, and we will switch to data fusion at a later stage. But we will monitor all the EGPWS TOWS alerts, which is a low-hanging fruit, quite easy to detect in the FDM data, but still of high interest for the different operators. We will tackle topics linked to runway safety. We start with takeoff, misconfiguration at takeoff, change of configurations, rejected takeoff, this kind of topics, sorry. Yes, and there is a last one, but this gives you a flavor of the type of algorithms we implement. Then the idea is, sorry, for each operators to produce a trend at systemic level to aggregate those trends and have what we call anomaly detection algorithms to detect deviations in those trends that should focus our attention, that should raise the need potentially of some more detailed advanced analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I take this opportunity, so you've seen that the first phase is a kind of a test phase or setup phase. We have pushed within the Rotorcraft safety roadmap to include Rotorcraft in the subsequent phases. Hopefully successfully, but there is a big commitment behind from all stakeholders in the aviation and the helicopter. First, equip with some data monitoring systems within your helicopters, and we'll promote that with cheap ones that could be fitted even on the lower-end helicopters. Secondly, provide this data. That's also something which is absolutely necessary. Thirdly, what we want is to give you back some analysis. When we say this morning, yesterday morning during the Rotorcraft safety roadmap outlook, 90% of the operators do have less than 1 helicopters. If you want to do a proper SMS risk assessment on 5 helicopters, it does not make sense. You need to have a wider scope, a wider set of data to be able to do a proper SMS. If you're Babcock, I see Babcock is in the room with 300 helicopters, it makes sense, yes. If you are a small operator doing your operations on a daily basis, you may miss actually some risks that are occurring elsewhere. And that's what we want to promote, is to then give you back a picture of the global risks for a type or a type of operations. But for that, it is absolutely vital that we have this access. And then the intelligence, the algorithm will be provided free of charge. So let's take the benefit out of it. And that's really a plea for us. Let's prepare that. We have probably 3 years before helicopters are taken on board. Let's prepare everybody within each operations with the proper setup so that then when the switch is on, we say helicopter on board, we can feed the data straight away. That's really a goal, and it's something we will work with EHA, other aircraft manufacturer, to make sure we are prepared the D-Day to set up the tool. Okay, thanks for that.